Welcome to another episode of the Shakedown podcast. With me, as always, my brethren, my compadres, my peers, the one that they call Sebastian, the one that they call Jairzinho, aka the A-side. How are we doing, chaps? It doesn't matter how you are doing because there's a couple of F1-centric threads at which we need to pull. In the first instance, let's speak to Maximilian Verstappen, Sir Baxter, because I know you'll be watching the bloody Grand Prix this weekend at Barcelona, the Spanish Grand Prix, with a bit of Schadenfreude, a bit of glee. Talk to me, Baxter, about how you ingested that incident, sir.
Okay, so I'm going to get the good bit out the way first before I go into my full, two-footed, tackle on this. So, because I know that people think I hate Max. First things first, I predicted Max to win this race because I thought it's Spain. Ever since Mercedes put that strategic masterclass on him, he doesn't lose at Spain. He's going to have the pace. And maybe this technical directive will maybe get him a little bit closer to McLaren. And if he's a little bit closer, he might get the job done. We've seen that on occasions this year. And I thought the strategy that Red Bull employed was fantastic up until the safety car. I thought that he drove brilliantly. And I thought this is another case this year of Max doing everything he can in the face of defeat. And then lap 64 happened. And then he was a dickhead.
How very dare you? I've got to stop you there. How very dare you use that language to describe one of the go-to F1 peddlers that we've ever seen? Herein lies the issue, Sir Baxter. It's the terms that people leverage at Maximilian Verstappen. Now, can I agree with the incident or the intention? Absolutely not. But surely all of a sudden it's a bit disingenuous. No, I call it promotional malpractice, Baxter, to use the D-head word. I mean, I think you're being a bit harsh there, Sir Baxter. Do you know what I mean?
Before context, if Lewis had done that, I would be calling him the same word. What are you doing? That's just my verbiage. No, he acted horrendously. In my view, he should have been disqualified. Yes, he took a lot of damage in terms of championship, and he lost a load of points. He was given 3 points on his license, which means he's 1 away from a race ban. But you do not use your car as a weapon. You just don't do it. It is... How many times have we seen the FIA turn around and say drivers need to be role models? This is the perfect example of where you should hold your drivers to account for that very same reasoning. I mean, he got a lesser penalty than George Russell got for cutting a chicane in Monaco. That is ridiculous. The harshest penalty that I've seen given for something like this was Vettel in Baku, and he was given a 10-second stop and go penalty correctly because it was behind a safety car. He shouldn't have done it. They gave him a penalty. Michael Schumacher literally tried to barge Jacques Villeneuve off of the track, and he was disqualified from an entire championship. Now, I'm not saying they should go that far, but they should have disqualified him from this race to set an example and to say to drivers, you do not drive like this. This is the pinnacle of motorsport. We've got eyes of the world on us, more so than we've ever had. Do not do this. I do not care who you are. If you're Max Verstappen, if you're Gabriel Bortoleto, I do not care who you are. You do not deliberately drive into another driver.
May I counter, Sir Baxter? There's something you said in there. I don't think you're a million miles away. You're definitely past the Mendoza line. I don't think you're batting 1,000 quite yet, though, Baxter. Here's the point. We can have this conversation in a vacuum, but ultimately, Brundle says it best, right? There is no F1 without financial resource. And after Sir Lewis, who is the biggest source of financial resource as at June of 2025? Then Maximilian Verstappen. There is a reason, sir, why they gave him 3 penalty points on his license and not 4. Because if Max goes away, you're going to have a problem with promoters over the course of the Canadian Grand Prix, so too Austria. Why? Because a gazillion people will be at those Grand Prix expected to see their Lord and Saviour, Maximilian Verstappen. There is a tightrope walk. I understand your point, Baxter, but lest we wish to have the sport fade to black and no one attend, I think we can't have this conversation in a vacuum. Sans the consideration of financial resource.
Okay, so you said the biggest financial driver is Lewis. Who was the guy that had the role model thing levied at him for crossing over the track? And yes, Lewis was rightly punished for that. You shouldn't do that. He at the moment, blah blah blah, doesn't matter. He shouldn't have done it, and he got punished for it. And okay, MBS went, OTT with his then subsequent criticism of it, saying, "Oh, we're role models," blah 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 blah. You know, you are the world champion of this sport. You are the guy that people look to. Like my man Fly was saying, we when we spoke about it, he said, kids look up to Max Verstappen. Kids love Max Verstappen. They watch what he does. He is setting the example. He says he doesn't care. Great, but it doesn't matter if he cares or not. He is still setting that example. You know, and I saw people criticizing Rachel Brooks for her line of questioning. Her line of questioning was absolutely correct. She was a journalist doing her job, and the fact that Max was so reticent to even acknowledge the incident, really, in a way, because I don't really want to talk about it. It's like, no, you got to know that people are going to want to talk about it because you barged somebody, well, didn't barge them off the track, but you deliberately drove your car towards an opponent. And the stupid thing with this is it was, why did you have to do it? Like when Michael and Etten used to do it, they did it to people so that they could get ahead of them in the race. I don't really, Shez may know better than me, but I don't remember incidents other than Suzuka 1990 of when they just thought, screw it, I'm going to use my car as a weapon. You know, even 94, Michael was doing that. Sorry to bring that up, chaps. I know that you get cold sweats when I bring up 94. It's that was done to influence the race rather than just signal his unhappiness that Damon might pass him. It was just ridiculous impetuousness, red mist behaviour from Max. He should know better. The fact that he basically admitted it in his social media post yesterday, going, "Yeah, well, a move happened that shouldn't have happened." The most politician-like statement I've ever seen from an F1 driver. It, it's unacceptable. I can wholeheartedly agree with what Nico Rosberg said on the Sky Comms, saying that it's a black flag. There is no excuse for it because he did akin to what Rossi did to Marquez. That was the example he gave, and I feel it's an apt.
Shez, chime in on this, chap. Agree or disagree with Sir Baxley that it should have been a black flag worthy of disqualification? Was the incident so severe?
I think if you're going to use precedent, then I think a bigger penalty is reasonable. Sebastian Vettel got a 10-second stop go, didn't he, in Baku 17 for a similar use of his car. It's a really difficult one because like we're always asking the FIA for consistency, and last season in Mexico, you'd argue that he did something similar to Lando at the second time of asking, um, and he only got a 10-second penalty for that. So I guess they're being consistent, but man, it doesn't. The problem is, it doesn't look very good, does it? Um, there's a difference, I think, between Max being robust in defense, which I don't like that form of racing, but I love the fact that he's using his head to race his opponents. This isn't that though. This was he was angry and he decided to do something with his car that he shouldn't have done. I mean, you can shout down the radio and scream and swear at your opponents, but actually like using your car, just even if you're not talking about kids looking up to him, just like Max in himself, I wonder if he, after all of the backlash he has got immediately after the race, is thinking, oh, maybe that was a bit too far. Maybe I do need to rein it in. And the fact that his team this time hasn't held back. Like I've not seen Christian Horner come out with a bunch of photos and some telemetry to try and defend him, which is the normal response from Red Bull. And Helmut Marko even I think has said I don't know what he was thinking. So even if the penalty isn't huge, and I do think that like that needs to be revised a little bit. It is ridiculous that George Russell got a drive through for cutting a chicane and Max gets a 10-second penalty for barging someone intentionally off the track, which, it is deliberate. He's admitted it. That probably needs revisiting. But the fact that that's what he got, I guess, is in line with what has been given. I just think that it's provided a period of reflection for Max when he has heard nothing but negative comments about it, which is different, I think, to how things normally go when Max does something.
You know what I think, chaps? I think that you both are F1 snowflakes, man. I think that's I think there's something to be said. Here's what I'm going to tell you guys. And as I advertised immediately after the instance, I think Max doesn't cut an empathetic figure here yet, but the causation and the wheres and the whys here are more interesting to me. I would contend that Max doesn't do what he does if not for the bloody Charles Leclerc incident, which is techier than techie things in and of itself, right? On the straight, Charles like, listen, I wasn't going to have him put me on the marbles. Well, just steer into him, them Shez. What, like that's, yeah.
As in with your steering wheel straight? Is that how you steer into someone?
Charles, listen. Charles, for me, and for Anthony Davidson on the bloody Sky Pod internationally syndicated broadcast, we both agree that Charles, if anybody's going to take culpability and blame for that instance, of course it's got to be Charles Leclerc, your guy, modern day Jean Lazy. So that's your exhibit A. And then,
but wasn't Nico Rosberg also on the syndicated F1 broadcast saying that it wasn't? So
no. Well, I think he called that one wrong. I'll defer to Anthony. In real, no, because he said that in real time.
Yeah.
When Anthony Davidson got on the bloody SkyPad and analysed it forensically, he could quite clearly see that somebody was going into somebody else, and that person had a name. His name was Charles Leclerc. In the second instance, the George Russell thing. Bloody Nora, way to oversteer. Reminiscent of Silverstone 2021, any. 3 things you've got to do if you're going to complete the move within the rules and be compliant with them. Of course, you've got to keep it on the island. Of course, you've got to be alongside your front axle's got to be alongside the defender's wing mirrors. And then in the third instance, of course, you've got to bloody keep the car under control throughout the overtaking manoeuvre. George did the first 2, not the third. And so, of course, Max is going to be on the back of driving a god tier race, making a 3-stop work, fighting fire with Lando and Oscar, who both of whom have an ostensibly quicker car. At that stage, Max is going to be like, what's going on here? Like, do you know what I mean? Why don't you put some more bloody, like, I don't know, what's the word? Some more bloody Atlas stones on my back so you can make my life more difficult. As if he's not already losing the championship. So that I think is the broader context. And then finally, Shez, after all of that, the Leclerc incident, the flipping, the George thing, getting steered into Silverstone 2021 reminiscent of, then you're going to tell him to give back the flipping place. It's like, well, what to...
So we're gaslighting everybody else, are we?
No, but it's not gaslighting, Shez.
It is a little bit.
None
of them were in the car.
I don't think it is gaslighting.
Hannah Schmitz wasn't in the car.
Those things happened.
GP wasn't in the car.
Those things happen. I'm just saying why. If I were, listen, those in glass houses, if I were in that car, if I were Max Verstappen, going through all that, I'm not saying I would have acted how he did, but I can understand Shez. I can understand the dude is in the car furious, particularly at the George thing, and you want me to give him back the place. Why? He understeered into it. George didn't do anything, Shez. Is that what you just said?
Correct. He
my gosh, Shez.
He wasn't the one asking for the place to be given back. The FIA weren't asking for the place to be given back. Red Bull were asking for the place to be given back.
He was the one who understeered his way into Max Verstappen's side.
Yeah, and nothing was given.
Yeah, and something should have been given is the point.
Why?
That's where we're being a bit.
You're saying that George should have been.
You think George should have got a penalty?
Yeah, listen. Okay, should George have got a penalty? I don't know the answer to that question, mate. I don't know the answer to that question.
Why are we continuing to make, like, every time this happens, like, people bend over backwards to make excuses for Max, where if it was any other driver, we'd just be going, they're an idiot. But yet, somehow when Max does it, it's different. No, he was an idiot. Like, yes, he had all those things going on, but the mark of a great champion is that they keep cool under pressure, which Max does 99% of the time. He then just, had a red miss moment and decided to go and barge somebody, and it wasn't like it was one of his direct rivals in the race. Like, he has no beef with well, he does have a beef with George Russell, but he has no issue with George Russell in this race other than being slightly love kissed into turn one after. And also, one thing you forgot there, Cam, is he made a mistake out the final corner at the safety car restart, so he would have been pissed off at himself because of that. Do I think Charles Leclerc should have got a penalty? Yes, I think he should, because I thought that was more on him, but the stewards were like, we felt it was 50-50. If that's how you see it, fine. I disagree. So I can understand why he's pissed off, but you just don't do that. Like, that is why I have been so angry about all of this, because it just shows an impetuousness, and it shows a sign of entitlement that he thinks he can just go and do what he wants on the track.
Actually, I will say one. I will say one
second,
thing.
Shez. Pause on that for a second. Safak responds to you back to saying, you weren't talking all that good stuff at Silverstone 2021. Were
I wasn't even on this podcast in Silverstone 2021.
But it is techie. It's techie. Go on, sorry, Shez, I interrupted.
No, all I was going to say is, look, what I don't want to do is suddenly turn around and say, "Oh, this always happens." Like, I think the instances of Max doing something like this are vanishingly rare. It's not like he's out there red mist barging into people 24/7, but by the same, and I'm not saying that he is, but by the same token, when it does happen, I think it's fair to criticize him for it. And I take your point about all the mitigating circumstances that had happened up until that point, but ultimately, you are in charge of a 1,000 brake horsepower, 750 kilo, no, 800 kilo missile, and mate, you've got to keep your head about you. Like, pressures will come at you. You're in a race. Pressure is the name of the game, and stuff is being sent at you to make things difficult. He's constantly complaining about how stiff the ride is, or how the gear shifts are from 1972. This is all stuff that must be annoying him, but you don't see him running people off the road because his gear shift doesn't work. So being able to handle that pressure is just part of it.
Yeah.
I don't think you can use that as an excuse.
No.
Yeah, not an excuse, Shez. Just a reason, chap. No more simple or complicated than that. If we're saying, I don't know, if we're going to disbelieve the evidence of our own eyes and ears and say, well, I don't know why Max Verstappen would do something like that. We've just gone through the multitudinous reasons why he was fuming. Not that this excuses it, but again, it's a reason. That's the explain.
Okay. So Cameron, answer this question then. Does the fact that there's a reason that we can understand it, that there's mitigating factors, does that mean that you have more leniency when it comes to giving a penalty?
No. It should, but I'm not. Listen, I'm not the regulatory body, am I? So that question, like Max said, I don't even think that question applies to me. Now, what I will say to that, though, Shez, is this. My Achilles heel, as far as the way I ingest my sport, the lens through which I watch Formula One, has always been that I have an excellence bias. So if we're looking at Lance Stroll, or I don't know, Nicholas Latifi, and they were going on this way, zero tolerance in my humble opinion. But this is a subject. I always crack the joke: truth, value, and objectivity on this channel. I will not sacrifice any one of the aforementioned at the altar of partisanship. However, excellence does one of these to me, chap. Like everything, like all of the indiscretions kind of fade to black of us slightly when you want to talk about Suzuka and all these poles that Max Verstappen's got this year that he probably shouldn't have been able to unless he was outperforming the car. That for me is the broader context, and that's why I feel like it's championship privilege to a certain extent, isn't it? 4-time champion.
One rule for Max, one rule for everybody else.
No, not if I'm the FIA. If I'm the regulatory body, then it's a different thing.
But they're not handing out the punishment.
But if I'm a B spec, I can only talk as myself to you, Shez. If I'm a B spec noddy F1 content creator, there is a goodwill. Max Verstappen. The honest truth is this, Shez. Max Verstappen this season, 9 rounds deep, has been the one to put so many smiles on my face. I can't even imagine what this season, well, we're about to find out, right? But hitherto, I can't even imagine what this season would be without Max Verstappen keeping them boys in that papaya-coloured car honest. All the bloody qualifying lap, Suzuka, where we should, the turn 1, Imola. Like, I want to talk about that when we're talking about Max Verstappen, not like the whys. And I'd word it this way, Shez. I think what happened, turn 5, George Russell, Barcelona, Circuit de Catalunya, is a small price to pay for the almost unlimited sporting endeavour par excellence that we've seen from Maximilian Verstappen's season to date. Full stop, new paragraph, sir.
Yeah, well, the next paragraph is clearly that then this tiny bit of criticism that he's getting for what he did on Sunday should be bearable in the face of all of the praise that he gets from us 99.9% of the time.
He's been excellent this season, and he's just had a red mist moment. And from my view, he should face the consequences of that. Like it does not matter who you are. Like and it would send a powerful message to say, look, we don't care that you're a 4-time world champion. You screwed up. We're going to punish you for it. Like
just for the avoidance of doubt, Cameron, what's your feeling on this? I know you've sort of skirted around it a little bit, but do you think he should have been disqualified?
Well, I mean, to use your thing, the president is the most recent one, similar ilk, was Vettel on Lewis, right, Baku a couple of years ago, and for that he got a stop. Was it a 10-second stop go?
Yeah, and that was correct because it was under a safety car. This was green flag racing.
But I think so. I heard the guys and girls over at the race. I think it's Hughesy speaking to it. He said that the 10-second he thought was fair. It wasn't like
I heard that too.
It's though there was intent. It wasn't murder, was it? It was more manslaughter. Like he wasn't looking to do him over properly. He didn't keep his throttle in. It was a cheeky love tap, just like Seb.
That's no excuse. Sorry, I disagree with that. No.
So is that where you stand then? That it should be less of a thing than what Seb did.
It's tacky.
I mean, I will say this. There has been damage done to Max reputationally. I feel like, in some way, because even some of his fans have been a bit like, yeah, that was a bit. There are still those defending him. I had somebody trying to tell me, oh yeah, he just understeered into him. It's like, really? Do you think I was born yesterday? And then he's also lost a chunk of points to the McLarens that he wasn't going to lose, and he's got these 3 points on his license. But the most important is the championship points. And I feel like he's now 49 points back. No one has ever come back from that much of a deficit in this era of points.
Can we talk about this? Do you think this is actually part of Max's master plan?
No.
Go on.
No. Max's philosophy is just win all the time. That's what he wants to do.
Yeah,
and it's why people love him. And it's why I respect him, because he just pushes so hard to be number one every single time. And that's what he would do. But there's no grand master plan to break records or something.
No, I don't mean that. Surely the long game is to win as much as possible. And if you're not going to do that in a Red Bull, why are you not trying to get yourself out of your contract?
No. That's Max won't do that. That's not his style.
Mate, look, I'll say this, Max steers we round third base. I'm not sure. I'm now more sure than ever that there is a non-zero probability of him going to Mercedes or Aston Martin. Now,
I still think Aston.
Mate, I'm not even sure. Well,
so
one of
Flavio's trying his best with the media loving campaign, going, "Oh, you need 2 Verstappens in the car." It's like, Flavio, he's not going to come to you. He's never going to go to Alpine. Yeah. Just give up. Give up, Flavio.
But everybody's saying that, and it's testament to the power of Max Verstappen. Right? There's not a team principle up and down the grid.
Of course, yeah.
Themselves.
Agreed.
But Toto, look at Toto. You heard Toto's response. Yeah, well, sometimes was your team principle, Baxter, but sometimes the greats act like that, right? Siege mentality, us against the world, and they make mistakes. It's almost like, could you want to call me a Max Glazer? Well, how about Toto, the boy who cried wolf, man who would drop kick in the chest King George Russell if it means he can get a sniff of the Maximilian Verstappen signature on a contract here. I think he'll go. I think it's a serious thing. Crackosaurus, you're a legend. Max's original point is correct. If this is F1, George taking that risk at that exact time was no different than intent. Anything else is an insult to George's quality of a driver. Respond to that, Baxley, very quickly, because that's decent.
Sorry, read that again.
Techie. Max's original point is correct. If this is F1, George taking that risk at that exact time was no different than intent. So I think what Krakosaurus is saying, that Max was making the point right. That maneuver, in Max's mind at least, was basically a mirror, apart from the intent. I'd tinker with Krakosaurus there ever so slightly. Apart from the intent, Max is saying that, look, all right, so I've got to give back the position. Well, this is exactly what George did to me. Let me show you. That's why he was saying,
that's
isn't it?
right. Okay, so this is the point I was making when you had Michael and Senna. What George did was what Michael and Senna would have done. They would have pushed the line as hard as they could to get past their opponent, to better their position in a race, or to get into the lead of a Grand Prix. What Max did to George was just, I'm grumpy and I'm taking it out on you. Like, because I'm now not going to win this race because my team have screwed up. And that's one thing we're not talking about, how badly Red Bull screwed up. You know, and it's yeah, but yeah, no, nowhere near the same incident. George was just racing and he made an error. And in my view, that was a racing incident. Just turn one incident post safety car. That happens. And if you want me to be consistent, I felt Silverstone 21 was a racing incident. But Max did that deliberately because he was grumpy and he just saw George and was like, "I'm going to hit you."
Mate,
they're not the same.
Rage
Don't
Against the
even
Machine
try
settings. Mate, there is a similar but not the same. Ches, let's finish on this chap. OG Zilla Legend says, let's be honest, Max hasn't had this much pressure in a championship since 2021, and we all witnessed the behaviours then that are resurfacing now. To that, Chezinho, you respond how, sir?
I think he's got zero pressure on him, like zero, because like the way this championship's playing out, where he is, if he gets a good result, he gets a good result, and he has the ability at the moment to throw caution to the wind a little bit more, right? The other two, Lando and Oscar, have got each other to worry about, as well as Max nicking wins off them. But especially with the way Spain played out and the fact that, as we all kind of really knew, this technical directive wasn't going to make any difference. Max can sit there and snipe and just be the best Max he possibly can be, and that for me is fun. It's fun to watch that because it's just him being a virtuoso behind the wheel, and that's when Max is absolutely at his best. I hope it continues for the rest of the season. I think the worst thing that can happen in Formula One right now is Max Verstappen getting in the fastest car on the grid. It would make this so boring.
Go on back, Steve.
I agree. Yeah. Because if he was in that McLaren against either Oscar or Lando, he's down the road.
Yeah, finished.
Over. Yeah.
Chaos. Look at us getting Max choked in 2021. Bloody Nora Central. Like we haven't got time. I wish we'd need another 90 something minutes to cover that, and we've sadly rounded fourth base. You guys have been legends in the chat. Thank you so much. Apologies, another curtailed episode of the Shakedown, but we'll be back same time-ish next week, pulling at all the pertinent F1-centric threads. As per usual, from Baxter B in your middle, legend of shifting happens, and Baxter B F1 on your right-hand side of your screen, the legend that is Chezinho, a.k.a. the A side of Tired GP. Amar, I'm coming for you very shortly, sir. We've all getting so active on Twitter, mate. We're due to reconvene and renew rivalries at some point. I've been your boy Cameron CC. As per usual, you guys have been legends. Thank you so much for the support. I am grateful in extremis ad infinitum. Between now and next time, the prosecution rests. No further questions, Your Honour.